How's it going, guys? Today I want to talk about how much it costs to start a business in the Philippines. Let's go. So I had one of my subscribers leave a comment on my California Expat new channel. Make sure and check it out if you haven't already. And the commenter asked if I could do a video about how much money it costs to start a business in the Philippines. Thought it made a bit more sense on my American Entrepreneur in the Philippines channel, so that's why it is over here. So I'm gonna do my best to try to give big picture costs for most things that you would spend on a business in the Philippines, starting with rent. So rent costs are really gonna depend on where in the Philippines you are. I'm in Cebu City and I have the most knowledge of how much things cost here, but some other cities I'll mention briefly as well. So in Cebu City, there's a couple of main business areas, and in many other Filipino cities, it's going to be the same thing, where there's going to be a high concentration of businesses in a specific area. So in Cebu, for example, there is Cebu Business Park and also Cebu IT Park, and the costs are roughly the same for rents. So what you can expect is that for most places in Cebu Business Park or Cebu IT Park, that the cost per square meter is going to be about 1,000 pesos. So if you are going to get office space that's 100 square meters, for example, expect around 100,000 pesos per month for that office space. Pretty easy to calculate, and more or less that's going to be in the budget range that you're going to look at to be in a very nice area that is safe, nice office space where a lot of employees will have easy access to transportation or local malls. So really ideal spots if you have a normal type of business out of an office. Now, if you're going to have another type of business that is, for example, in a mall, then you probably are looking at roughly similar cost per square meter, but sometimes malls are going to charge a percentage of profits in addition to the square meter cost. So just be aware of that as well. Now, I'm talking about for a dedicated office. My office, for example, we have a 5-year lease. That helps to bring the cost down a little bit, but there's also a lot more of a commitment there. So if you're looking for 1-year, 3-year leases, work on negotiating those type of things. And when it comes to square meter costs, also negotiate. Not everything is in stone. However, the rate that I gave is in the ballpark of what you need to expect. Now, if you're going to start a business where you don't need a dedicated space, maybe you just have 1 or 2 or 3 employees that you want to start off, you might consider a co-working place in somewhere like Cebu City. You could expect probably around 6,000, 7,000 pesos per person in a co-working space. Alternatively, there's something called BPO seat leasing or just seat leasing, and that's where you're going to rent a place that has seat leasing. For that, it's probably going to be 8,000 to 10,000 pesos per seat per month, and often that's going to include something like computers and internet. Same with the co-working space as well. These type of prices aren't normally negotiable. If you want the more negotiable prices, you really want to look at a dedicated space with a longer term lease to get the best possible fees. So if you're going to rent out, as an example, a 100 square meter place, expect about $2,000 US a month. If you're going to have a co-working space, expect anywhere between probably $100 to $140 a month per person. And if it's a seat leasing place, expect about $160 to $200 per person if you're in somewhere like Cebu City. Now, recently, I've been helping out a client from the UK that's looking at starting an office here, and we've looked at other cities, for example, Davao City, which is the 3rd largest city here in the Philippines. I found that costs were a little bit higher there. So for example, with BPO seat leasing, instead of being about $160 to $200 per seat, they gave me a price that was about $250 per seat. So I was surprised that that cost was a little bit more in that city compared to Cebu City. Co-working spaces there were roughly the same. Also helped clients in Manila area, Makati, BGC, the more high-end business districts in Manila. And I was surprised to find that those prices were lower compared to Cebu City and Davao. And my thinking of why that might be the case, because most people would think Manila, especially places like Makati or BGC, which are very nice business districts, most people would think those areas are going to be even more expensive than Cebu or Davao. But the reason why I think that they are lower cost than both of those cities is because there's just so much supply of office space right now, whereas in Cebu and Davao, there's a lot more demand, raising the prices up. Now, in addition to rent, you also need to think of things like CUSA. Pretty much this is just a fee that almost everywhere that's in an office or even residentially in a condo is going to charge for taking care of costs for guards or maintenance people, electricity in the area. And for that, fees are going to change a little bit, but I would just expect to add perhaps another 5% or so in cost for something like CUSA fees. Again, I can't give exact costs for all these things, but expect that big picture. Just one final thing to be aware of when it comes to rent. Mostly places here are gonna expect 2 months up front, 2 months security deposit, and so expect to have to pay a bit more initially than you might be used to in your home country. Second, you'll have to think about internet costs. Now, it really depends on the size of the business and how much you need. For us personally, internet is so important, and so we have 3 internet connections and basically have it set up where it's going to automatically pull between whatever connection is fastest and has the most bandwidth available. So right now we have 3 different companies, Globe and PLDT. So those are kind of a duopoly here. There are a number of other internet service providers, but Globe and PLDT are just really common. We spend about 2,500 pesos for each of those. And then we also use another company called Rise that is similar, but it tends to have much more reliable service. So for example, when we had Typhoon Odette here in Cebu City, Globe and PLDT were knocked out for about 6 weeks throughout pretty much all of Cebu City, but Rise kept going. That though, we're not paying $50 a month like we are for Globe and PLDT. For that, we're paying about $250 a month. We have a dedicated line going directly to their main station, but it's really worth it. So for us, with internet, you could go anywhere between $50 if you're just looking for one connection, all the way up to about $350 a month, which is our current setup right now. Thirdly, you got to think about salaries. Now, people often will say, hey, the Philippines is a great place to do business because salaries are a lower cost there. But that's really changing. And I think that since the pandemic, what you could expect with these things isn't quite the same. So depending on what area you live in the Philippines, there's going to be different minimum wages. So right now, for example, in Region 7, where we live, the average minimum wage is 435 pesos a day for most businesses. This could vary depending on if you have under 10 employees or different things like that. But on the whole, minimum wage is going to be really low. So most people working at, for example, restaurants or different jobs like that are often going to be paid minimum at a lot of restaurants. People that work for companies like ours, where there are specialists doing web development or graphic design or video editing, how's it going, videographer, copywriting, things like that, are paid a multiple of that, and definitely a lot more in demand. So for my company, we pay people anywhere between 25,000 pesos a month and someone, I won't say who they are, making about 10 times that much a month because of the level of speciality that they get. But overall, I would really expect to be paying people anywhere between about $300 a month and about $1,000 a month for most jobs over here for the salary. Now, on top of that, I would expect about 30% additional that the business is paying for government benefits. So in the Philippines, legally, you have to pay for SSS. SSS is a type of Social Security. You also have to pay for PAG-IBIG, which provides low interest loans for Filipinos that want to get a home, large purchase like that. And then there's PhilHealth, which is the national healthcare system. So all in all, I would factor in for that in taxes about another 30% to cover those type of government benefits. We also offer private healthcare for our employees, when they start, anywhere between their first day up to a maximum of 6 months after they've started working with us. You can expect about 25,000 pesos a year to cover that cost, or about $500 a year. Very affordable. Now, there's something in the Philippines as well called the 13th month. And if you look at your calendar, you might say, what do you mean 13th month? There's only 12 months. Well, not in the Philippines. What the 13th month is for employers here that employers don't like and employees love is that in the month of December, you have to pay employees double. So it's great for Christmas time with people wanting to get presents for family and different things like that. But for an employer, ideally you would be putting 1/12 of someone's salary away month by month. This is prorated, how much they get paid in December, depending on how many months they've worked for you during the year. And then December is always a good month if you're working in the Philippines. But as an employer, you got to factor that in to know that there's going to be double the salary in the month of December. Another important expense here is having a business attorney on retainer. Fortunately, attorneys are so reasonably priced here in the Philippines. You could find a great attorney that would be on retainer. I'd say anywhere between 3,000 to 7,000 pesos or $60 to $140 a month. You're going to find an attorney that's going to be there to give you advice about different legal issues related to employers. There are different processes that you could wind up going through here with the Department of Labor and Employment or similar bodies if there's a problem between an employer and an employee, and expect that you're going to have to pay more to an attorney for those type of situations. But all in all, I would definitely factor in having a business attorney to take care of employment-related legal issues. Last but not least, having a great human resources team for recruitment, for employee-related issues is really important in the Philippines. I've had a business in California for 15 years. I never once needed a human resources person, but here it's just very different work culture, and you're going to find that's going to help out a lot. So there's going to be some other expenses that you might need to factor in the Philippines that you didn't have to think of in the US. So there's a lot of other factors that are difficult to talk about exactly on this video. For example, business formation, that is going to have different costs depending on if you get a one-person corporation like I did here with Purple Cow, our business process outsourcing company here, or if you have more of a standard corporation. If you're not a Filipino citizen, some of the other types of business formation routes aren't available. That would be even easier to do, but expect that you're gonna definitely have to spend some extra money to form the business over here initially, and that's gonna take a bit of time. So we have some other videos about that. Put a link up here, and make sure and check that out as well. And of course, the type of business that you have is going to make a huge difference. What I've been talking about big picture in this video is a business that would be working out of an office somewhere, service oriented like I have. If you were going to open up something like a restaurant, which we've opened up multiple restaurants over here, it really depends if it's a smaller kiosk type restaurant or if it's a larger dedicated space. When you're looking at businesses like that, you know, the equipment factors really add up as well. And you need to know that sometimes electronic goods or physical goods are going to cost a little bit more in the Philippines than they are in your home country. Why that is, I would guess it's because of import taxes or what importers are charging for a lot of these types of things. But you would really need to price out that equipment. Sometimes the price of equipment makes certain types of businesses not really feasible. So for example, I've had a number of people reach out and say, what do you think about opening a laundromat in the Philippines? Sounds like a simple idea. People know that not everybody has a washer dryer here, or they have a washer only. They might not have the time to hand wash clothes or things like that. So they think, hey, I got a genius idea. I'm going to open up a laundromat. But what they don't know until they investigate it is that the cost of commercial washers, dryers is a lot more expensive here than somewhere like the US, and people would be spending a lot less that they'd be willing to pay per load of laundry. So you get higher cost of goods and you get lower costs of what people are going to pay, doesn't make for a great business. So pricing everything out is really important before getting started in a business here. So would love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you have any specific questions that I haven't been able to address in this video, let me know in the comments below, or reach out to me for a consultation in the link below if you are thinking about starting a business in the Philippines, and I would love to help. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch, guys. Take care.